Welcome to the Empower Hour, another weekly edition. I am your host, Alqamar.
And I'm Hanifah.
And we're here again each and every Wednesday, as we always do, come with to you with an impactful topic of discussion from 2 to 3 p.m. live with your help, of course. We definitely always want your input and your help on these discussions. So we're going to do what we always do. We're going to jump right into the topic of discussion,
Yes.
which is leadership. What does all that entail? And then midway into the program, we're going to loop back around and share with you guys some exciting things that's coming up this week here at Everlasting Life. In the studio, let me just say, I've been dying to do this interview with this Baba because he is one of my favorite jegnas. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yes.
See, I'm learning. My favorite jegnas. I learned so much wisdom from this brother. And so when he finally said he was going to be coming down and doing this interview, I was just so excited. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you guys to Brother Imhotep Fatiu.
Yes.
Lead organizer of PLM Pan-African Liberation Movement. Please share a little bit more about who you are and what you do in Baltimore.
Peace. Hotep sisters, I'm glad to be here. This is an honor. I usually don't do a lot of interviews.
Nope.
I believe in just doing the work. But of lately, I've been watching our people, watching our state of affairs. And I realized that it makes sense for me to bring forward some of the things that I've been able to learn over the years. So yes, in addition to being the founder and the leader of PLM, I'm also the co-founder of our nonprofit youth organization, Urban Youth Initiative Project, the founder of our African-centered awareness and critical thinking study class. I don't like to talk about all the stuff that I've done. I like to get straight to business. So this is what I will say. I believe in Pan-Africanism through and through. And the Pan-Africanism that I believe in is the Pan-Africanism that simply and explicitly speaks to Africa. I don't believe in a Pan-Africanism that tries to incorporate any foreign elements. To me, that's not Pan-Africanism. My understanding of Pan-Africanism is a returning back to the ancestral ways of our ancestors. So that's my premise, that's my stance.
All right, yes sir. Well, a lot of other things that you didn't mention, like the daycare center that you guys have, and you're up there and training and teaching the youth.
Yes.
The vegan restaurant.
Yes, I left that out.
That you guys have up there feeding the Baltimore family healthy meals. Yes. I know you are into the schools.
Yes.
You teach in the school systems, history, our African history.
Yes.
Those are some of a few of the things that I know. Oh, the marketplace.
Yes.
You didn't mention that. You have a marketplace that you do almost every month, where you bring the community together and to trade and barter goods. So you don't talk about it, and I tell people that's why we don't see your face out there, because you're too busy doing the work. A lot of the things that everybody else scream that we need to be doing, we need to be coming together, we need to have our own community, we need to do this and support our own, all the things that we gripe about. Your life is a prime example of doing all of those things. So I commend you, Brother Imhotep.
Thank you.
Leadership. I'm going to jump in and let Hanifah, if she has the first question.
No, I mean, I have a lot of questions. Again, welcome to the Empower Hour. I'm Imhotep. But I wanted to just start from the beginning. I just wanted to know, where does your passion for what you do come from? And where did it start? When did it start?
1992. I was serving 20 years. Eastern Correctional Institution in the state of Maryland. And for some reason, I was not able to get along well with those Europeans. And I was young, we constantly clashed. So I was on lockup. And while on lockup, this older guy, he asked me to do a favor for him. And that favor was to read a book. And that book was From Superman to Man. And it began there. From reading that book, it put me on a path of seeking self-knowledge. And I've never left that path. And as I began to walk that path, I realized that the conditions that we were in as a people were systematically designed to keep us down, to destroy us, and keep us just out of our minds. And so I made a pact with myself. I said, I will not live in this world and not give my all in an attempt to change those conditions.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think we can run down a whole laundry list of the things that leadership entails, right?
Yeah.
But my question is, because I think we get hung up on this, and I think a lot of us don't really have a good assessment. What is not leadership? What is going on currently in our communities that we look to and seek as leadership, but it's really not, in your opinion, good leadership?
What isn't leadership is poor behavior. Poor behavior is not leadership. Indisciplined behavior is not leadership. Reactionary behavior is not leadership. So those three things are the three things that's currently taking the lead with our people, because our people are attracted to poor behavior, indiscipline, and reactionary behavior because it's easily masked as something revolutionary. And it's masked as revolutionary because we don't understand what revolutionary is. So we believe that what we see is something revolutionary, so we attract to it. But it's actually something that's destructive to our own being. To be a leader, you have to have a clearly defined mission and vision, and you have to have a clearly defined plan of action to carry that mission and vision out. And you cannot be an effective leader if you have poor behavior and you're indisciplined, because your enemy will destroy you.
Absolutely.
Your enemy will knock you off if your behavior and your discipline is not intact.
What are some examples
because that's one of my questions.
of not having discipline?
Yeah. Behaviors,
what
are some of those?
You have to have sexual restraint.
Let's go there already.
You have to have sexual restraint. So anytime an individual is parading around as if he or she is a leader but lacks sexual control, you have to watch that person, because that's a weakness, and that can be manipulated. And that can be used to destroy us. You cannot have expensive spending habits as a leader, because you want to mess our money up. You have to have your finances intact, and you got to be able to manage finances well if you're going to be a leader. And you cannot respond to everything that's done to us as a people. You can't run to every little bonfire and call yourself a leader, because if I'm trying to destroy you, I can manufacture something to set you up. So you have to be clear. You have to be selective about the battles you pick, because you pick these battles to win.
Is diet one of those things in there too?
Yes, it's a ton of them, yes.
Okay, because I was just thinking, like, I often think about that as far as like leadership, where even just revolution, there may be times that you may not have access to certain things. Like, I think along those lines, and I'm like, so you have to learn discipline around diet too, to a certain extent.
Yes, that goes back to your self-control.
Yeah.
You have to be able to. I was asked this question once. When I asked this question once, when I began my path, there was an older guy that I looked up to when I was incarcerated. His name was Mustafa at the time. So I asked him, I said, how do you build discipline? Because I wanted discipline. And he gave me a very blunt answer that I didn't understand at the time. He said, whatever you love, deny yourself. And then he walked away. So I'm sitting there for months trying to figure this riddle out. Then it came to me. The things that you have a strong liking and a love for, if you can control yourself enough to the degree that you can deny yourself those things, then you can manage yourself. So I began to deny myself the things that I did like while I was incarcerated. I used to like eating this granola cereal. Yeah. So I said I won't eat this cereal for 6 months straight to see if I had any control over me, to see if the cereal was going to dictate and move me. And that's when I began to understand that to have discipline, you have to be in control of yourself and not allow things to move you. And that's what I sought to master, supreme discipline.
But Imhotep, so some people would say, so are we saying that leaders are to be perfect? Or some people would ask that question. And also, the other question is, how long, like if someone does not, let's say they lack discipline in certain areas, they have the charisma, they have a following, but you could clearly see they lack some discipline in certain areas, what would the advice be to that person? Should they step out of the limelight until they've mastered those parts of themselves, or should they continue to work on developing themselves while they lead?
That's a great answer. A great question, because I'm never in the limelight for the most part.
Okay.
But I believe I understand something about leadership. I don't believe that you have to be in the lead to actually lead.
Okay.
Marcus Garvey and Carter G. Woodson pretty much told us that the best leaders are those who serve.
Yes.
So you can have your character flaws, you can have the things that you're working on and developing yourself, but if you're constantly doing the work, providing the service, the work will work those things out of you. Doing the work will work your weaknesses out of you.
I like that.
And that's what people don't realize. They believe they have to be in the limelight, but the reason they seek the limelight is because they're trying to mask an insecurity. There is a weakness that they carry within themselves that they are attempting to mask and hide in the limelight.
I agree with that completely. Go ahead. Sorry.
Arrogance is a huge downfall, I think, for so many. How do we become arrogant in an oppressive state? How does one, if we're all in this state of climbing up, trying to get a boot up off our neck, how do we then have the gall to feel like, we are better than the same people who are also oppressive? And why is this arrogance thing so prevalent in the quote-unquote leadership in our community, or the ones that we see out front a lot?
Arrogance is also a form of insecurity. You take a person who's arrogant, and we're talking about the typical individual arrogance in the sense of feeling like he or she know it all and know more than everyone else. Now, these people tend to have information. Now, if they can flaunt that information in such a way to make people believe that they are more than what they are, then that becomes their crutch, because they are hiding something. So but they hide behind the arrogance. True leadership is humbled, because being a leader is to be in recognition of who you are and your human frailties. That's what makes you a leader. The acknowledgement that you are a human being seeking to serve a community. So you cannot rise above that community and look down upon that community. You cannot do that. And when people do that, that's because these individuals are insecure. There are some insecurities going on with them, and they are trying to mask and hide those insecurities. And one of the ways to do that is to trick you into believing that I have it all together and you don't have anything together. That's because I have been privy to coming to some information that you have not come across as of yet. That's the game that's being played on our people.
Okay, we are already on fire. So,
I just wanted to piggyback on that. I just want to ask, that particular character, I find, people will say, like, I don't need a leader. I'm my own leader. I don't, I ain't following nobody. What do you say to that?
That's utter foolishness. We need leaders. Believe that. Now, to say we need leaders is not saying that individuals cannot lead themselves. Everyone can do that, and it is the task of each and every one of us to develop a capacity to lead and manage ourselves. But that does not negate the fact that as a people, you do need leaders. History teaches us that. Our tradition teaches us that. But we need leaders who are servants. There's a difference. We don't need demagogues or charlatans or rabble-rousers. And I speak about those three characters in my book, the New African Revolutionary Vanguard. And what we have been receiving over the last 75 odd years are charlatans, are demagogues, are rabble-rousers. They are not authentic leaders. However, they have maneuvered themselves into a position of leadership. They're not necessarily authentic, but they are in a position. And they're in a position because the people, the body of the people, don't have a clear idea as to what the leaders should be doing. So therefore, they cannot hold these individuals to task. And that's because most people are trying to feel good because they are hurting themselves. So these individuals are serving a purpose momentarily. They are helping people feel good. because no one want to do the work to heal themselves. So because I don't want to do the work to heal myself, I am going to allow you to finagle us because you do make me feel good momentarily. Wow. That's what we're dealing with.
Okay. Imhotep is on fire already. So, all right. So who determines if someone is a leader? The people, do the person themselves determine that, or do the people that are following them determine that?
Leadership, Dr. Martin Luther King never wanted the position that he was in. Okay. If you understand the history. The people chose king.
Gotcha.
Historically, it's the people that chooses leaders. The people appoints us. That's the African way. In the African context, what we are and what we become is two things. You earn it, and it's conferred upon you. You don't self-appoint. There is never self-appointment because you're not in this business to make yourself feel good. That's not why we do what we do. We're doing it because we're trying to provide a service for a people. In the work that you put in over time, the people are allowed to examine the work, and based on the effectiveness of what you've done, the people say he is qualified, she is qualified. It's based on your work. It's your resume in the movement that matters.
Now, leading, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Now, if I'm in a leadership position, you talked about people ultimately leading themselves, but also the necessity, for leaders in the community. Shouldn't the purpose of those leaders be to teach us how to lead ourselves versus leading us to them?
Yes.
To depend on them for knowledge, to depend on them for, resources.
And that's the work, and that's the service. So when you're a leader in the authentic sense, you are working for the people. And part of working for the people are helping them to solve their problems and find solutions to their problems. And you do that in your work. And so you are to inspire them, not necessarily try to get them to bow down to you.
Okay.
Now, but you want to inspire them. Now, granted, they are going to hold you up at times. They are going to feel like, you mean something to them because they see your value. But in seeing your value, you must forever remind them that you and them are the same and they can do as you do. You must never let them allow them to believe that they cannot do as you are doing. They have to know that the same way you made yourself a better person, they possess the capacity to make themselves a better person.
What I find about you, because your whole life is you just don't speak it. You just you do it. And what I find is whenever I visit my Baltimore family, that's what I call PLM. If nobody knew who you were and your position, they would just think that you were somebody just hanging out in the corner somewhere, or I have to actually let folks know who you are if they come and don't know who you are. Yeah. So my point in saying that is that everybody else around you push out front. When it's the lectures time, lecture, you women, you always applaud you for that too. Center the women around the lectures. In some lectures you do, it'd be 3-4 lecturers, and they all women.
Yes.
No men on the panel, all women. And so I appreciate you for that too. But I find that you allow other people to take that center stage or get on that podium or be out front and running the show, and you seem to be okay with that.
Yes, I am. I read a book about 20 years ago. And it was a European book. So I read it. But somewhere in the middle of the book, it was talking about this teacher-student relationship. And what the guy said, he was quoting an Asian philosopher who made a statement. And the statement was, the greatest joy of a teacher is to witness the day when his pupil could exceed him. And so I took that. And my thinking now as a leader, see, for me, the greatest joy is to see the people who lives I've touched to surpass me. So that's the reason why I'm always trying to empower the people that's around me, because if I can empower 100 people and they all become great, then that speaks volumes about me.
Yes, sir.
I don't have to be the one that's in the front if I can give the world 100.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. So for me, it's never about me. And I think sometimes my modesty becomes a weakness in some sense, because I do understand the type of society we live in, and people do need to hear and want to see certain people. And I tend to be real modest because I'm in this business to win, and I'm in it because I love my people, and I want my people to know that whatever you see in me, you can do. Look at like this right here. I only went to the 8th grade. So if I never told a person that I only went to the 8th grade, the person would never conclude that. If you go look at my resume of things that I've done, you would never say that. 8th grade education, beyond that. Written 3 books, got a 4th book coming out, touched the lives of tons of people, transformed their lives. So for me, it's about letting everybody know that the same way I committed and dedicated myself to do this, this is what you can do. This is what this is about. To know who you are and to know that you possess the power and the ability to transform your lives is what we have to get across to our people. Because right now we are living in a state, in a time period, when people are walking around as if they cannot do any better. This is their thinking.
Yes.
So they are settling for everything. They can only beg, plead, and complain. And when the people fall that low, when all they can do is beg, plead, and complain, we're on the verge of self-destruction. We're on the verge of self-destruction because the people is the power, and we have to get them to recognize and realize that we can do better. And as long as these charlatans are allowed to run around our community and bamboozle our people, we're going to be in trouble. Yeah. So we have to raise the standard. So that's the reason why I come forward and I speak now, because whatever I talk about, I've done. So you can't debate me on nothing that I talk about. There's no debate when I say the things that I say, because I've done it. I don't speak from no theory. I speak from practice. You can't tell me that you can't transform people. I've done it. You can't tell me you can't create a study class of 100 for 10 years. I've done it. You can't tell me you can't take a person who had no clue of knowledge and self and put him in a study class, and now he runs his own study class. That's Anani. Anani is my product. He runs a study class now because I taught him everything that he knows. But now he is his own man. So you can't debate me on the things that I said. You can't talk to me about leadership and what it should look like, because I am that, and I do that, and I empower people. You can't tell me. I see the people that surround me now that's writing books. There's about 6 people that's in my group that got books coming out. That's inspired. So there's no debate on things that I talk about. So a person can't begin to debate me because I'm not talking about no theory.
Right.
So I'm talking about practice. This is what I do, and this is what I have been doing.
Considering the condition that you just spoke of as far as our people is concerned, what would you say is the biggest challenge facing leaders today?
The biggest challenge facing leaders,
considering the condition of our people.
That's an excellent question, right? And I'm going to answer it 2 ways. For me, I don't see a major challenge. Okay. I'm going to tell you why I say I don't see a major challenge. Because I totally accept the fact that we are living in a warfare. That's what I accept, right? And in warfare, it's the job of the enemy to destroy you, right? So I accept that, and I'm prepared for that. Now, on a broader sense, in a general sense, the major challenge for us is connecting with our people. There's a disconnect. And as long as that disconnect exists, we're not going to touch the people in the way that they need to be touched. So right now we got a lot of people that follow a lot of people, but they're not being touched. So it's one thing to touch, and it's one thing to just incite. Right? So we need to be able to touch the people, and you can only touch people through connecting with them. And to connect with people, you have to spend time amongst people, go amongst people, and be accessible. I've had only one phone number since I've had a cell phone. Right. 410-900-7527. I don't have a problem with that number. I'll give it to the whole world. I want to be accessible. I don't need no 3 or 4 people to try to get to me. I don't need none of that. I don't walk with bodyguards or none of that stuff. You know, when we start thinking we too big and so on and so forth, inaccessible, that removes us from the people and creates a disconnect. When you think about ancient Ghana or ancient Sangha, or you think about ancient Mali, places like that, our kings were accessible, or the leaders rather were accessible. They met with the people on a regular basis and listened to the concerns of the people, and then they implemented systems to ensure that all of the concerns were met. That's what leaders have to be able to do. Develop capacities that allow you to remain relevant and connected to your people.
Teacher, I wanted to ask about culture.
Oh, man. That's my area there. I love culture.
I know, because you taught me a lot about the importance of culture and why is that so important to who we are and where we're headed.
Culture becomes the essential factor because everything within a society is cultural. There's not a single thing that we can think of, interact with, or engage in that's not culturally determined. And if it's all culturally determined, it must be determined by a particular culture. And if it's not our culture, then it's someone else's culture. And if we are responding to the beat of another person's culture, then we are not responding to our indigenous beat. And therefore, you're off beat. And therefore, you're off center. And if you're off center, you're misorientated. And if you're misorientated, your behavior and your actions will not be initiated in the best interest of yourself and your people. That's why culture becomes important. Culture tells you how to move in your own best image. Culture tells you how to do things that's going to maximize your best interest. Culture allows you to create the narrative that you live by. That's what culture does.
Can you, if you could, can you define culture, please? Exactly what that is? Because you were here oftentimes, and there are African Americans that feel that they have no culture, and then there are foreigners that feel African Americans have no culture. Can you please explain or expound on exactly what culture consists of?
That's a great question, because culture is misunderstood and culture is broad. Mm-hmm. So for the sake of clarity, this is how I would define it. Briefly, culture becomes, for a people, their collective behavior system. And that collective behavior system is dictated by their ideals, values, customs, traditions, cosmology, and worldview. All of that must originate from their indigenous center. So how we see the world, I'll give an example. So the way I see motherhood has to come from my center. So I can't see motherhood solely as a woman who just happened to give birth. Mm-hmm. See, in the African context, motherhood and womanhood are intimately the same thing. And womanhood becomes something of high status in terms of how you conduct yourself. So the African mother is a woman who understands a social, political, economic, cultural, spiritual, and cultural role that she must fulfill. Mm-hmm. It's more than just saying I have given birth. I'm understanding that in giving this birth, that there are roles that I must fulfill. So culture becomes it becomes a people's ideals. It becomes a people's concepts. It becomes their cosmology, their worldview, their customs, their traditions. And our customs are not the United States of America customs. Mm. So what they do is not ours. So that's not our culture. Mm-hmm. Although we may say we was born and raised in America, we have a culture that exceeds and extends beyond the United States of America. We got to understand that. Right. Our worldview is not their worldview. Yes. Our cosmology is not their cosmology. So we got to understand, so we need to know what our cosmologies are for the most part. So we need to think about, when we talk about a supreme being, we need to be able to at least say Oludumare. We need to be able to say Oshun or Ptah. Mm-hmm. We need to be able to say something that reflects Africa. When we talk about traditions, we need to look at our traditions. One of our traditions is what? Rites of passage, age grade systems and things of that nature. The multi-parenting system, where we don't have a nuclear family, we have a communal family. Mm-hmm. This is us. So this is cultural, not this old crap about one mother, one father, a couple children, and you got a house. That's not us. That has been imposed upon us. And that's the reason why we're struggling. So we got to understand what is our ideals and concepts of family. What's our ideals and concepts of education in school. So even the idea of school is not us. Right. When you think of school, you're thinking of something that's separate from family and community. That's not us, because in the African sense, the education went hand in hand with the socialization, and all that took place within the same community.
And work.
All of that was the same. Mm-hmm. So we are fundamentally different through and through. So to understand culture is to understand your history and your traditions. So the more you understand your history and your traditions, the better you are equipped to understand your culture. And as you understand your culture, you begin to think differently. And I like to add this too. Most people leave this out when we talk about culture. Taste, smell, and feel is culture as well.
Sense is.
It's culture. And that's the reason why, when you think about it, you give a child, you can sit a child down in your kitchen, and you can get a child some freshly squeezed orange juice or some Sunny Delight. He or she want the Sunny Delight. Because the culture that we are in are conditioned in the taste. So all that's cultural. So we need to get back to changing all that and understand who we are. And this is the reason why we don't like so much stuff about us. You know, we say, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this. Someone else have conditioned those likes and dislikes in you from their cultural standpoint. Because the more you dislike something about us, the more you works in their favor. That's what we don't get. We have to learn to like everything about us. Even the things that we might feel like, man, I'm not okay with that. Right? We got to learn to like us. We got to learn to like that our sisters breastfed the children. We got to like that. You can't say, I don't like breastfeeding, you know, breastfeeding this. No, you got to learn to like breastfeeding. It's the most natural thing on the planet. You just got to learn to love it. Right?
If you're just joining us, we are here in the Empower Hour talking about leadership, what it all entails with our brother Imhotep from Baltimore, PLM, Pan-African Liberation Movement. If you want to join the discussion and you have a quick question, call in now at 240-455-5934. Facebook family, I know sometimes we don't always get to your questions, and some of them are good questions, so please jump in on the call, 240-455-5934. We're going to go into the promos in just a second, but there was two things that stood out for me. Every time you teach, there's always, one or two things I grab and, I can take with me for life. And recently, one of the things you had said was, I heard you say something about not shielding our children from the realities of our existence. You said allow them to sift through their own feelings. Don't try to sugarcoat what we're currently dealing with. Can you go into that? Because that was impactful for me.
Yes. Children are uniquely equipped to receive whatever it is we have to give them. It's the responsibility of the community to create the systems and the processes by which this is going to be administered. One of the mistakes we tend to make in this society is we do not allow our children to know exactly what's going on at the earliest of ages. I'll give you an example. We see a lot on Facebook, the police is mishandling some of our black children, body slamming them to the ground, punching them in the face, things of that nature, mistreating them, abusing them, and things like that. And when I look at that, I shake my head because what's happening is that we are allowing our children to leave their homes unaware of a war that's being waged against their people. So this is the reason why they're being mishandled. Our children need to be made aware that there's a war waging against us, and they have to be educated as to how they are going to proceed out here in this society. George Jackson made a statement at one time, and his statement was, he said, it is the duty of a parent to provide their child with an accurate interpretation of reality. Don't keep letting black African children walk around in this society not knowing that a war is waging against African people. That is negligence, because they are ill-equipped to deal with the enemy when the enemy show up. They don't know how to respond, and sometimes they respond in a way that works against them. Now, I'm not saying that we make them fearful or frightful. That's not what I'm insinuating. I am saying tell them the truth. Tell them that the war is out there, and tell them that they have a responsibility to preserve themselves and protect themselves and understand what's happening. So this is the reason why they won't always be in a messed up situation. But as long as we don't do that, we're making a grave mistake, I believe.
Okay, we're going to jump into promos. Again, we're here on the Empower Hour talking about leadership with Brother Imhotep. If you want to call in, the lines are open, 240-455-5934. We do have a myriad of different things we do here at the restaurant. The studio is just one. Actually, we do what's considered a dinner and a movie each and every Friday night. We take the dining in area here at Everlasting Life and we create a theater. And we take impactful, similar, like what we're doing here, movie topics, and we air them, and then we have a discussion that follows. That's always free, and again, that takes place every Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. Thursdays is Children's Night. So each and every Thursday, bring the children, 12 and under. As long as they're with a paid adult, a company adult, they eat free. So not only do they eat free, there's a lot of different educational and fun activities that go on here with the children. They love it. They come together. They have a good time. It becomes a big playroom. So bring the children. That's Thursday night, Children's Night. Everlasting Life is one of 3 locations. This here is the main hub at 9185 Central Avenue in Capitol Heights, Maryland. Dr. Baruch has blessed us with 2 other locations, same great tasting food. One is Evolve Restaurant and Lounge, and the other is Vigoritos, which is a bar for, help me out, what kind of bar? Vigoritos.
Veggie bowls.
Burrito
bowls, yes.
Burrito bar. And they both are located in the Tacoma Park section of Washington, D.C. Marketplace every 3rd Saturday of the month from 11 to 4. There's a fresh marketplace where you can get produce, natural supplements, organic herbs and spices, vegan groceries. We do different cooking classes and things of that nature. And we're looking for individuals who specialize in those products. So if you want to join and be a part of our marketplace as a distributor, you definitely want to reach out. Reach out to someone here at Everlasting Life for that. Black Wall Street Renaissance. That's an event that that I host myself each and every first Saturday of the month from 12 to 6 p.m. You can come here and do some shopping. We have different vendors to come and share their wares and their goods and their services. And not only that, we do lecture series. So the lectures normally start at 3 p.m. Brother Imhotep was one of our lecturers for this past Wall Street Renaissance. Very impactful stuff. If you want to hear more from him, that lecture is on our page, the Empower Hour talk show page. So come join us for the Renaissance. That's always free. That takes place every first Saturday of the month from 12 to 6 p.m. And then I'm here with my jewelry, Malik's Fashions, 4 days a week, Tuesdays through Friday. Catch me right here in the lobby area for all your great quality jewelry, as well as basic necessities like soap and toothpaste and body oils and deodorant and things of that nature. Oh, and Hanifah has something to share.
Oh, yeah. And also, I sell earrings online. And the name of my shop is Things for the Journey. So you can get to the shop by just putting in shopthingsforthejourney.com. That's shopthingsforthejourney.com. And also, if you like the content that we're sharing, please remember to like our page and to also share our page as well. So,
yes. All right. So we're jumping right back into the discussion. The second mention I wanted to say, what did I have? Oh, I heard you say one time to those in your organization that if they ever feel you become compromised, get rid of you. Get rid of you.
That's the GOAT one right there. That's the GOAT one.
I thought that was noble.
I believe that, historically, when you think about traditional African leadership, because look at it like this. The reason why I make that statement, to lead is to serve. We got it twisted. We think that leadership is this lofty, privileged place that we just sit. That's not African leadership. African leadership is always about serving. So if I'm no longer any good and I'm compromised, then I can't serve. Then as an organization, you have to make a decision how you're going to deal with me. I'm not necessarily saying you got to, remove my head, but if I become traitorous or something like that, then yes, you should go and just remove my head. I'm okay with that. But if I'm no good to the organization in the sense that I can no longer serve in a healthy capacity, then they should find somewhere to place me. Don't be so caught up on the fact that we love each other and you love and like me that you allow me to take the organization into the ground. Don't do that. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, love PLM. This is the vessel, this is the vehicle. Love that. Do right by PLM. If I'm no longer any good for PLM, then organizationally, remove me.
I don't know why, but Mugabe comes to mind when you say that. You have something you want to share?
No, I was just going to talk about, we started off by saying what is not a leader. And so I kind of wanted to kind of shift that into what are some of the characteristics that we would say every leader should have to make them a good leader. What are the important characteristics?
Some of the characteristics that I think, and my list will be limited, but I will base my list on my personal experience. I think that the first characteristic that makes one a leader is humility. I think one has to be humble enough to be willing to just allow him or herself to continuously learn, and to never feel like he or she have arrived. So it's humility. Then I would say you have to have some courage, because you have to be willing to do the impossible. You have to have discipline. I'm not a fan of indisciplined leaders. I'm not a fan of that, because I know the type of enemy we're up against. So you have to have discipline. So humility, courage, discipline, integrity, dignity. For African people, I believe that that individual should be centered. He or she should be founded on African history and culture, no other person's culture, our culture, because this is what we should be transmitting. Spiritually in tune. It should be someone that's in touch with our spiritual systems, and not someone who's just out here. A non-spiritual leader, to me, is questionable.
You know how I feel about
I'm
that.
so glad you said that.
It's questionable.
You know how I feel about that.
A leader that's not
Yes,
in
teach
touch
on
with some level of spirituality, we have to question him or her.
Yeah.
Because if you're just all worldly,
That's right.
then you can be compromised, and you can be pushed, you can be bought. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't have what you need. And I think that spiritual piece is very important.
I agree.
So those are some of the things that I would say. And it has to be, in addition, I believe that leaders should be, in this context, we should be men and women who understand the importance of family. Even if we don't have a family at the moment, we should understand family, and we should always hold family up, and we should always advocate it. That should be something that's always on our lips. And at some point, if we don't have family, we should be building a family. So I'm questioning a person who speaks about nationhood and nation building, but has no family. Because at the core of the African nation is the African family. And if you don't understand anything about family, running a family, how you gonna run a nation? So I gotta question that. And as a people, we have to question that. But most cases, we don't question it because we don't understand the relatedness between family and nationhood. There is no African nation devoid of African family. So if you have leaders that are incapable, and I say it again, leaders incapable of maintaining healthy, strong relationships with a man and a woman. If it's a man, and he can't stand a relationship with a woman, and if it's a woman, and if she can't stand a relationship with a man, we have to question them. Something is going on inside of them that will compromise us at some point in the future.
Wow. So I had two questions. Now, while you were speaking, my mind went somewhere else. But so the first one I was thinking of is, as leaders, are leaders able to be taught by their so-called followers? Should they be open to learning from those that are following them as well?
The best leaders, some of the best leaders are those who pay attention. Most of the lessons that I have, in this book right here, I make a statement. I say, study the fool, because he or she oftentimes teaches without even knowing it. What I'm saying is this: if you are a leader and you have groups of people around you that look towards you, You can learn from those people. It's the responsibility of the leader to pay attention to everyone around him or her, because people tend to teach you. I'm 46. I'll be 47 on March the 20th. So if I have people around me that's 25, I have to pay attention to them, because they are living in a time period that I didn't necessarily grow up in. So I got to pay attention to them and learn what I can learn from them. Anyone who feels like he or she cannot learn from the people that he or she feel like they are followers, that's a leader that you need to question.
And then my second question was, what I've noticed is usually we'll have something within our community, those that we consider leaders in our community. I found that a lot of people may not be following them, but as soon as there's some drama that erupts, all of a sudden their following goes up. How does a leader, or someone who is considered a leader in the community, how do they handle that as far as not getting caught up in the whole fanfare of it, but removing themselves from, what the people is asking for, which is drama, and I think that's just a sickness that our people sort of have. How does a leader handle, how would you say a leader should handle a situation like that?
An authentic leader, and I'm always trying to make that distinction, because we need to draw distinctions when we use these terminologies.
Okay.
So I'm going to say an authentic leader will take the situation and try to and recognize if the people are caught up in the drama or the sensation. An authentic leader are going to navigate them back to the place of relevancy that will matters most. They're not going to allow them to become drunk off the sensation, nor will he or she become intoxicated off the sensation.
Right. Okay.
Now, these other things that's running around as leaders become drunk and intoxicated off of the sensation, and then in turn they use that to further intoxicate the people.
Okay, and I have one more and then I'm done. So my last question is, you talked about the disconnect with leadership and the people. How much does social media, those platforms, play a part in that? Because now it's easy to just turn on your camera and speak and develop this following, and how much does that play a part in that, and how do leaders find that balance to where they're able to connect to the people but also still use these platforms to teach?
Authentic leaders are not going to spend as much time on the platforms. They're going to spend less time on the platforms and more time in human contact. Because the more time you spend on these devices that keeps us separate from people, the further you're going to be moved from your humanity. That's the basis of these devices. There's nothing social about what we define as being social media. There's nothing social about it. It's just a media. That's what it is. It's a form of media that the Europeans define as being social media. So now that's a language that we've turned to pride. But if you understand what social means, you will see that there's nothing social about these things right here. And the more time you spend hanging inside cyberspace, the more you lose your humanity. You become more robotic, and that's what's happening. So if you're a real authentic leader, you are going to try to find as much time as possible to be amongst people in human contact, because it's the human element that develops the human being, not the mechanical things.
God, thank you for that.
Teach me.
That's something I know.
Ife, your beautiful, beautiful, beautiful wife.
Yeah, I love you, Ife. I love you.
How important and significant is her role in what you do?
Ife balances me, and that's about complementarity. People tend to think about they talk about opposites and stuff like that. In the African world, we're not dealing with opposites. Opposition and opposites imply antagonisms. We're trying to find that with complements and allow things to fit together. So Ife brings a balance, and her balance is simple. Me, I'm always looking like this. I'm the one who got these big grand ideas that's pushing the movement. We got to do this grand. And then Ife is the one that's looking at all the fine details on how it can get done. You know what I'm saying? So for me, people might see me and see a strength, but that's an actual weakness that I can admit to. It's a weakness that's balanced with her. And that's what life is about, finding the balance. I'm on the world stage in terms of my thinking. I'm always saying we need to go to Africa, build these connections, we can build a school in Africa. So I'm all the way over there in Africa already. You know what I'm saying? And that's me. You know, like this last week, I'm like, we did an event. I'm saying, listen, we're going to build a community shrine. And this shrine going to be this, that, and other. This is how my mind works. And then, you know, she had heard these little ideas and things like that. And she'll sit back and ponder. And she'll figure out little intimate details of how this stuff can get done. So it's balanced.
Beautiful. Yes, I admire you. You guys.
Like we do Kwanzaa every year for 7 days. That was an idea I came up with. We need to do this Kwanzaa event. It needs to be centralized. We do it for 7 days. I didn't put a lot of thought into how much energy goes into doing Kwanzaa every day for 7 days. Right? It was Ife to figure out like we're gonna do it. This is how we're gonna do. Boom, 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 boom. You know what I'm saying? So that's her role. It's balance.
Beautiful, beautiful. I know this is a little off the topic, but I wanted to ask you personally, well not personally, but publicly, do you think there's a homosexual agenda at play?
Oh man, you'll get me in trouble with my brother Irritated Genie. You know this is his lane. This is his lane. I don't want to step in his lane. I got my little lane. I want to step in his lane. I respect my brother. I think he's doing a great job. And believe it or not, because of his work, because of his tenacity, because of his efforts, it's clear and it's plain that these individuals are trying to make homosexuals. So I have to agree, and I stand behind my brother on that. I support that 100%. And I say that there's no room in our movements for homosexuals. There's no room for that. There's no such thing in my book, and it's in here. And I talk about it. There's no such thing as a homosexual African man. You can be homosexually male, but not an African man. That's two different things. An African male and an African man are two different things. There's no such thing as a homosexual African man.
I've heard Minister Farrakhan teach that you can come as you are into the nation, but you can't stay that way as it relates to being homosexual.
That's a good message. Let me tell you why. Because it is touchy when you think about it. There's some of our people who are sexually misorientated are not there always by choice. So some may be redeemed. I'm willing to step out there. I believe that. And I believe that those who are willing to be redeemed, if they come to something as structured as the Nation of Islam or as structured as a PLM, and they come in and open and they're honest above board and understand that you have to be all man here, we're not going to hold you and convict you for something that happened to you when you was a young boy that kind of, got you off course. But if you coming to us to become a man, then we're open and willing to make you into a man if that's what you want to become. But you cannot be running around on the forefront with me, you see what I'm saying, twitching and shaking.
I heard that. Yeah, family wanted to jump in?
No, they're just leaving comments, no particular questions.
If you have a question, call us on the hotline. And the hotline number is 240
455-5934.
Thank you.
That's 240-455-5934.
Okay. What do you think causes so many of us to be ignorant of our truest selves? Why do we don't know who we are, where we're going, what we want to do, besides getting up, going to work, and coming home, eating, and going back to sleep, watching TV? I find that a lot of us are in this humdrum way of life, and that if you ask a typical person, who are you, what were you born to do, what is your mission here, they can't describe it.
I believe when you look at history and you understand anything about the human being is in fact a social being, and as such we have to be socialized to operate at our fullest capacity. And what the Europeans understood, starting back during the time periods of the enslavement, is they understood that you have these socialization institutions: family, environment, education institution, and your spiritual institution. They are the primary institutions through in which the human being is socialized. So what the European did is they controlled all four. And by controlling all four, they began a process way back when of socializing African people a particular way. So now what you have are African people just on a treadmill. So it starts in the family. So now we're giving birth to children who we don't understand how to begin to socialize to be African children. So therefore we give birth, raise these children, release them into a community that doesn't reflect African, send them to schools that doesn't reflect African, and impose a religion on them that doesn't reflect Africa. So you start a system. So in that process of being ill-socialized, you're being de-Africanized.
Wow.
So within that de-Africanization process, you're creating a thing. You're creating something that's only functions. Something that's solely based on base desires, physical appetites. That's what have happened to us. This is why we chase that. We chase what? We chase clubs. We want to party and shake, right? We chase sex. That's why relationships don't last. Everybody just want to have some sex. That's it. Now it's to the point where our women saying, well, if the men can have many partners, why can't I get many partners, right? So that's where we at. Drugs, partying, sex, entertainment. That's it. You know, we only are focusing on the physical aspects of being human. We're not looking at the higher faculties because we have not been socialized to think about the higher faculties of our beingness. It does not matter. We do not have the understanding that tells us that it matters. So we're dealing with people who have to be re-educated and re-socialized. And for me, that re-socialization becomes re-Africanization. They have to be re-Africanized. They have to be put through an extreme process that focuses on extracting out of them as much European as possible.
Yes.
And in putting in them as much African that they are willing and able to receive.
Well, we have a few minutes left, and I know you have some things. You had a question?
No, someone had a question, but I don't know.
Okay, go ahead.
This is the only question that came up. Well, two. One person wanted to know if you do public speaking events.
Yes, I do public speaking events. You can reach me at 410-900-7527. That's 410-900-7527.
And the other person asked, how do you feel about the drama that's going on with Malik Shabazz and the NOI? You know,
I don't even know.
Right.
I didn't hear anything about Brother Malik, but anything that's going on with the Nation of Islam, I can only assume it's because the Nation of Islam have said something that probably made some Jews upset. And anytime they say things that make Jews upset, then they're saying the right thing.
Ashe. Ashe. Well, tell us a little bit about your books, please.
Oh, yeah. So this is the first of my book. It's Urban Philosophy. Urban Philosophy pretty much for me becomes a system of how we can reconceptualize and redefine our reality. It lays down basic principles, understanding, and give knowledge. It starts out by giving a breakdown and an elaboration on the importance of culture. Because at the base of all that we must become is rooting ourselves back into our indigenous culture. So this is the first book, Urban Philosophy, Thought and Behavior System.
Excellent book.
Yeah, you did read that book. And this is the second. This is the Politics of Urban Struggle. And it grows out of the first book, but in this particular book, I go deeper in terms of focusing on what I believe are systems and strategies to be effective at doing the work out here for our people. And then the last book, which I think is the one I really like a lot, is Urban Philosophy, New African Revolutionary Vanguard. And here our focus is on behaviors, characteristics, and I get into what it is to be revolutionary and what it is to be reactionary. I'm trying to bring some type of definitive structure to the movement so we can be better equipped and more professional as we go forward in our attempts to help our people. I'm trying to give us some structure and some discipline.
Yes, sir.
And all my books can be purchased. You can reach me on Facebook at Imhotep Fatiu, or you can go on my website, which is thefirsturbanphilosopher.com. You can go there and purchase the books there.
And you do have videos too on YouTube.
Yes.
And then I'm sorry, you got.
And this right here is for everyone. Is like I say, we tend to do the work. We're building a school. Our nonprofit youth organization, which is Urban Youth Initiative Project, we're building a school, the Sankofa Institute for Enhanced Learning. And right now we are in talks with the city to acquire this little beat-up building right here from the city, which they are willing to give us, but they want us to raise some money. So currently to date, we have raised 10,000. We're trying to raise 100,000. But when we get 50,000, then we can begin construction. And we are open for donations. And I was thinking about my sister Alqamar, because she may not know this, but her $100 is right here.
No.
Sister Alqamar on the second page is her donation, $100.
Wow, records.
You know, you gotta keep records.
Yeah, you got a whole lot.
A lot of, yeah.
Wow,
You know what I'm saying?
beautiful.
So listen, help PLM out. We serious. We do the work, and we equip to educate your child. Check out WDC, Watoto Development Center. Check out UYIP, and you can see some of the work that we do. And you most definitely won't be given to a poor cause. You're given to a great cause, and it's not going to take us 10 years to build a school.
So when you talk about school, are you talking about like kindergarten to...
What we're going to do with this school is going to be under our youth organization, which is the nonprofit 501c3.
Okay.
So the school going to focus on children, African children, ages 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Cool.
And the way we're going to do that is through the age grade system. We're going to base it on how we've done things in traditional Africa. So I believe it's 6, 7, and 8 years it's 6 and 7, and then it's 9 and 10, 6 and 7 and 8, and the 8 years will be in the middle. If it's a mature 8-year-old, he or she will go up. If it's not that mature, they'll come down. But we're going to base this educational process on the age grade, and it's going to be across the board, as opposed to saying you're in the first grade, the second grade, or the third grade. We're not going to work on grades. We're going to work on development.
Beautiful, beautiful. And that's in Baltimore.
It's going to be in Baltimore, yes.
Okay, so we have ran out of time. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we need a 2-hour show. I don't know why we didn't do a 2-hour show with you.
But we can always come back.
Oh yes, thank you so much for sharing with us. We appreciate you, and family, share the information as always. And we always say that I know there was some impactful stuff you heard today. I don't even have to ask if there was. There was some impactful stuff being said today. So share it with others so they too can get the message, and we can have this message spread far and wide. And that's part of being unified.
Can I correct them?
Yes.
First urban philosophy is one ST first, not the word first. It's first urban philosopher at firsturbanphilosopher.com.
All right, there you have it. Thanks again. We will see you next week with a whole different topic of discussion, same place. Like our Facebook page, The Empower Hour. Take care. Peace.
Please, hotel everyone.